So, African Rainbow Capital, ARC. Well, let's take a look at the technical analysis available to us. Well, this is the entire history of the stock, and this is from all the way over here, 2017, it would seem, all the way up to the present. So, how would I take a look at this stock? Now, the first thing that I would like to do is obviously take a look at obvious levels of support and resistance. Now, the exercise that I usually do is I like to look at where are the swings in price range, because typically price cycles up and down, and you would like to see where do we cycle from up and down. Now, you can see there is a steady price decline, but we're not really interested in that. We're interested in the growth. So what I do is on TradeView over here, I can use my Alt T, which is for trend line, to create little trend lines. So I'm going to just go from here high to low, and I'm going to make this a solid line so that I can see it clearly. And I'm just going to go through the most recent highs and lows, and this is not an exact science, obviously. This is just a visual aid to see what it is currently doing. So go from typically your lowest point to your highest point, and your highest point to your lowest point. You can see that it made a higher low over here, a higher high and a higher low. These are important things to take a look for. So obviously there was a hyper aggressive buy up of the share here. I'm just going to change the scaling slightly over here, and luckily this also snaps lastly to the highest and lowest price point. Now we can see that the most recent price action has been a swing down. So there's been a sell off, and why would this price then sell off, you would now ask. And why have this huge aggressive sell off? Well, typically investors, I'm sure, have felt that the price is overbought, or the stock is overbought at this level over here. And now how would we ascertain this? Well, at this point over here, this swing low, you could see that the average was beginning to climb because of this rise here, and so was this 21 moving average also starting to incline. And then there was a hyper aggressive buy up of this stock. So that caused the average to shoot right above this 200 moving average, and cause obviously the 21 moving average to also close above this 200 moving average. So that typically would indicate, especially to traders, that here is an opportunity to short the market, in other words to sell the market, and therefore start taking profits this way. For investors, they might have seen this stock as being overpriced, and therefore fear sets in as an investor that you are going to start losing value, especially if you bought up here. But if you bought at lower prices, you would have seen that you have made quite a huge profit. There's many times the price over here, all the way up to here, at least 150% or so from down there. Which is a really good profit. So you might have had investors that have said, you know what, this price is really overbought all the way up here, and we might see a decline. So to protect profits, some investors might have sold the stock down or sold their shares entirely to lock in the profits, and with the view of waiting for a dip and then buying a lot more shares once it has dipped down to the bottom. Now for long-term investors, this doesn't really matter, because obviously long-term investors are expecting to buy many of the dips and hold, and therefore increase their share percentage and lower their average share price of their purchases. So for longer term investors, it's not a big deal. But let's say you have some investors that are not starting off with sort of 100,000 rand. You might have investors that are starting off with a small amount of money, and what they want to do is lock in the profits and then buy more shares once the price has declined again. Of course, this might not happen, and you might sit with that in cash for a long time before you buy. But typically the market cycles, as you can see. It cycles up and down like this. This is natural for a share price. Obviously, this was now a huge cycle and now dropped down now. So we are now currently in the last 2 weeks, we have been recovering or consolidating this share price decline. So we can then Alt T, now let's set a trend line here and move it up and maybe extend it through, and I'm going to just extend it to here. I'm not making any predictions because to make prediction is folly. You have no idea what the share price is going to do. You basically want to just take a look at what is the investor psychology at the moment. The share price might stall here just above this average 9-period EMA. It might stall here and then decline below the averages again. You might have investors once again saying, you know what, at this point it's above average, we might want to sell it down and take profit, lock in those profits. Or it might be that investors say that this share price is still in fact undervalued. There are lots of investors that do have this opinion with regard to ARC, and that is due to its involvement with Time Bank, and there's a number of other acquisitions and investments that they are currently doing. You can just take a look at all of the news and SENS releases that they've done recently to know that there is still a lot of untapped value in this company, and most investors, I would say, are expecting the price to go a lot higher. And are saying that this share at the moment is actually largely undervalued because of its recent corporate actions and strategic movements that they've made as a company. But now when one is taking a look strictly at the TA, the technical analysis here, you want to see that price is closing above averages. At the moment it is, or has last week, closed above the average. That is a really strong positive sign that there are buyers in the market at the moment. So we can expect that price might continue to incline, or it may, and this is my personal opinion, I'm expecting it not to incline too much, and we might have a little bit of consolidation. So I'm going to just draw back one here. We might have share price just ranging a little bit at this level, trying to find some type of stability, and it may just move back down to average, because if you take a look at the history, you can see the 9 EMA has sort of touched the 21 and then crossed below and then sort of ranged for a while with this little bit of indecision here. You can see these candles are showing sort of stability in the market when it comes to buyers and sellers. It's fairly balanced, therefore there's not a lot of movement either way, and then all of a sudden there is a breakout and buyers have entered the market. So there is still a lot of confidence in this share and this stock. So what we might expect to see is the 9 EMA dipping below, and then maybe we will have ourselves another breakout. So I'm going to, for my own purposes, do something like this. And bear in mind, this is absolutely not a prediction. This is based on how I understand investor psychology. and how investors might react, and particularly traders, because traders are strong drivers of the market as well. With their CFDs, and then they're just sort of shorting and longing the market, and buying up the market. There's a lot of action happening at that stage, and the thing is with CFD traders, what they're doing is borrowing basically shares and buying shares through a broker, and the broker, let's say, would leverage their purchase. So a CFD trader might buy 1,000 rands with CFDs, and the broker then multiplies that by 100 or 500 or something times, and so you effectively are investing, let's say, 100,000 or 500,000 rands worth of shares on the market through a broker, and that has a large implication on the share price. So, and even when it comes to a market taking a bearish trend over here, or I would actually see this more as a consolidation. We had this strong bullish trend, and then we have our bearish consolidation, and you should effectively see it from here. That's where it sort of broke out, consolidated and broke out for a second time. Now you can see, if you had to use a Fibonacci retracement, you can Alt F on here, and you would take it from your lowest point to your highest point, and you can take a look at where did price decline. It's sort of, you can see it moved up to 50% of where it went there. It declined almost to this 7.6 line, and then all the way up to obviously where I now drew it, and then it retraced to just below and actually closed just above this 0.6 line. If you don't know what Fibonacci retracement is, it is a ratio. You can read up on this, it's all over the internet, but it's a numbers ratio. I think it's 1 + 1, and then I don't know, you can look it up, but what it basically is used for in trading and investing is that for some reason price tends to move at these Fibonacci levels. It's just, I think it's because there are so many people that use it that it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Many investors would now use this exact same tool, see that price has kind of closed over here, and said, okay, this is a good point to now jump in, and they all jump in at the same time, and guess what, the price moves up then. That's how investor psychology works. So, people might have seen the price inclining here and said, okay, we don't know where this is going to go, and you would use a reverse Fibonacci retracement to see where it might turn. I haven't tried it on this one, but we can test it. Let's say we would now take it now the opposite direction, so you would go Alt F for Fibonacci retracement, and you can move it across here. And that doesn't really show much relevance, so let's move it to this one here, and that also doesn't show much relevance. However, all of a sudden you see something here. There might be some relevance there, although to use this to see where this might be an exit point, I think is a bit spurious. I don't know if that would really work. But the thing is, you have a lot of investors and traders that do use Fibonacci retracement. I use it very rarely. I kind of use it when there's been a very strong trend, either bullish or bearish, to see where other investors might want to get off the investment track, or maybe lock in profits or something like that, and to kind of look for areas of support and resistance. Now, speaking of which, there is another exercise that we need to do here as well. So I'm just going to change the scaling slightly, and we would then typically create another trend line here, moving through these price points. Now, this is a possible line of support that we can look at, and lines of support are typically where price returns, or let's say gets to its lowest point and then rebounds. And you can see that the price has moved above this level of support, which indicates your bullish trend of it, or you can see it quite clearly. However, this might be a case where or there might be a case where price declines sharply and might come back and sit at this level, and then you would obviously watch that level to see what do investors do. Does price break through that level and close? Particularly, you always want to see where does price close. Does it close below there? If it had to close below there, you might see a sharp sell-off, like say for instance with Naspers, that actually happened. And if price happens to close above, it might dip below but close above. If it closes above, you might be looking to enter the market over there. I don't want to be saying what I'm going to be doing at this stage, because I'm not in a particular position to give any type of financial advice or investing advice. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just highlighting what do I see on this chart and what possibly might happen. And these dotted lines, please do not take them as a prediction of what might happen. I don't know what the market is going to happen or is going to do. No one does. But what you want to do is you want to strategically position yourself for in case your prediction is true. And you want to obviously have a strategy in place as a plan B in case you are wrong. What are you going to do if you are wrong? Well, let's take a look. I'm going to just escape here, and I'm going to use one of my shapes, and I'm going to put a rectangular shape over here because this is a critical point in this stock. All right. So I'll just press Shift F to make this full screen. Now, if I see price incline and come back and sit over here and close over here, this to me would be a strong indicator to buy this stock, because obviously there are buyers in the market and they don't want the price to drop below average. If price had to drop and close below the average, there would be a strong indication that there are less buyers in the market, and you might see price decline down to support, and then you would watch what happens over here. So let's say you do buy over here and price inclines. Well, obviously you're going to make a profit, so you were correct in buying this stock. However, if price has to decline, it depends now on what your goals are as an investor. So you might say, for instance, if price closes below here, that you are anticipating the price is going to drop. Now, if you have invested and your price or your investment has dropped just a couple of rand, you have a couple of options. You can take your money off the table and just take your loss of 10 rand, let's say, or whatever, your small loss, versus what it would be if it goes all the way down here. You might end up with a loss of like 100 or 200 rand. If you're investing small amounts, if you're investing bigger amounts, it's bigger questions to answer. But you might want to take your money off the table, and I'm not in any way advising that you do this. These are just your options. You could then hold your money and wait for the price to dip all the way down to where you think it might turn around, and then take that same value that you took off the table. Let's say you're losing 10 rand on the trade, and you still have like 990 rand that you can invest. Imagine how many shares you could buy when it does turn around here, and let's say it moves up. Then you're going to have a lot more profit by buying the shares down here. That's the one option. The other option is then to wait for it to dip, and you could buy as it dips, just maybe in small amounts if you have money in cash to invest, investment capital that you can spend. Let's say you had invested 1,000 rand over here and it goes against you, it starts going down. You can buy in like sort of 20, 30, 40 rand, 50 rand increments all the way down, because hopefully you're expecting it's going to reverse over here, and by the time you've got down here, you've dropped your average investment price that you've paid all the way down to here. Now of course you would now wait to see what happens here. If price has to rebound and close above here, that would be, I think, a good idea to buy a large amount. Let's say invest another 1,000 rand over here, because you've got your 1,000 rand here, you bought, let's say, like 10 rand or 20 rand or 50 rand in increments as it goes down, and so you're now increasing your share volume that you own at lower and lower prices that you've paid. So when price rebounds, you're going to amplify your investment profit. You're going to amplify it because you've bought a lot more shares down here at a cheaper price, and as it now grows in share price, of course your investment now balloons a bit. If it happens to drop further, look, the chances of it going to zero is very, very slim. There's not a lot of chance that any of these companies, unless something really drastically terrible happens, like fraud or corruption, or a CEO that's been doing well gets fired or replaced or something, then you might see shares drop all the way down to there. Then you've got other options that you can use. You can then just wait it out and invest in something else in the meantime and leave it until it starts to rebound. It could take years though, so just be prepared for that. But you don't want to be at the bottom here. If it's now all the way down here at zero, be buying like 1,000 rand each time, because you don't know when this could incline again. So these are options and choices that you need to make as an investor. So these are your options. You might see, if I have to just use a visual aid here, where's my prediction thing? Forecast. So you could now maybe see price drop all the way down to there, and then it might decide to rebound and go up, and then you would now obviously make your choices as price moves like that. So just to make this full screen again, the things that I would be looking at first off is this green line. This green line is super important when analyzing any stock. And then how does it relate to where stock has been? So you can see this green line is quite high above recent, say fairly recent share price value. It's below obviously this spike, which was, it takes up very little of the range of this stock. So that would now indicate to you very, very quickly that this is a very small temporary spike as compared to what price was before. You can see the vast majority of the time price was below the current price level. So this is a great visual aid in seeing how has price been, especially all the way since, where is it now, 2018. It's been lower since 2018 than the current share price for the majority of the time that this stock has been in existence. For a very short time in the beginning, it was above that, but this is almost irrelevant at this stage because it's so long ago. It's pre-COVID, it's pre-invasion of Ukraine and all these things, so that is so not relevant at the moment. So if you have to look at the share price at the moment, compared to its recent past, a lot of investors might say its current price is actually kind of overpriced. However, compared to its potential, it's still really cheap. If you think about it, this price is currently at 6 Rand 33, and at some stage it was sitting here at around 5 Rand something, as you can see. So it's difficult because if you're a long-term investor, this is cheap. If you short-term, looking at short-term things, it's kind of overvalued. So you might see price kind of sit around this level for a while investors decide whether to buy this or not to buy it. So we might see a little bit of ranging, like I say, for a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months. I'm looking at here around end of April, which is incidentally, yeah, sort of just into the next quarter. You want to be looking at, there's where the quarter is, somewhere around here. But yeah, I see price ranging possibly, and then you would now make your decisions on how price is closing and based on your investment horizon. So this is ARC, and this is my take on it. This is not financial advice. You definitely need to do your own research, and whether that is fundamental or technical analysis or a bit of both, that's up to you. This is just basically my interpretation of what I think is happening and how I might see it happening for myself, and how I would react to it when price moves. So hopefully this is helpful. It's always good to get another person's perspective. You might see something or hear something different than what you were thinking yourself. So if you like this video, as usual, give it a like and a share or a subscribe. I will be posting more content on other companies that I find interesting, and I hope it helps in some way. So happy investing, and good fortune to you.